It's time for media, brothers.
Nicktoons, or Nickelodeon cartoons, are kind of a dying art. I mostly blame this on the fact that most of Nickelodeon's programming since 2013 has been
I like to make poopy in my diaper.
phenomenal, as you can see. That being said, Nickelodeon is, in my opinion, a king of animated series. Even if their newer stuff isn't all that great, their older stuff is iconic. Most of their stuff from the 90s to early 2000s has become stuff of legend. So today, I want to take you guys on a journey through the world of Nickelodeon and review most of the cartoons from their history that I've watched, whether it be a few episodes or a whole series. Keep in mind, this obviously isn't every single Nicktoon, these are just the ones I find the most iconic or the ones that I've just watched. If I missed one, feel free to tell me. Also, these are my own opinion anyway. Here we go! Starting off our Nicktoons review, it's Doug. This is admittedly not one of Nickelodeon's funniest shows, and it's not like, oh, it's for kids. Obviously, kids would find it funny. I know for a fact my dumbass wouldn't find this humor funny as a kid. Doug is a pretty tame show compared to the powerhouses we'd see later. Doug Funny, his name is Doug Funny, that's some shit right, is a guy. He's a guy in school, Patty Mayonnaise, this show has no substance. That's probably the biggest issue this show comes across. It has nothing. It's such a bland show compared to the other two Nicktoons that came out in 1991. It's just such a bore. Doug is not a very interesting main character. The other characters are about as interesting, to the point where the fucking dog whose name is Pork Chop is the only thing I can remember. What makes Doug such a bland show is its lack of focus. Nothing in this show really leaves an impact on you. I guess Doug is harmless, but as for its status as a Nicktoon, I find it pretty lackluster. Definitely less than funny. Trash!
How you open the show with some baby dick?
Kinda like Doug, I never cared for this one all that much, but unlike Doug, I can see why it has staying power. Starring a bunch of babies in their imaginations. That's about it. What the show does right is delivering a very imaginative world seen through the babies' eyes. I also argue this show perfected the idea that they're babies. You know, ugly as fuck. Okay, before I get some hate, let me explain. Babies, especially in cartoons, were always seen as cute and cuddly. I ain't cuddling with that little shit! I like that the design was a staple of the classy super. Hey, get that shit out of here! Another good thing is how imaginative the show got. It took something like growing teeth and makes it a very interesting scenario, considering the imagination of the babies. I guess it goes without saying these characters are all very charming. Oh, here comes Angelica, here to fuck up my day. Oh, fuck. Okay, yeah. It's no secret this brat is hated, and I hold no different feelings. She was awful back then.
I've lost control of my life.
A big thing about this show is that it isn't terribly funny. But unlike Doug, I can see the show being popular with kids. And so did Nickelodeon, because this show ran an especially long time from 1991 to 2004, with 2 movies, a mistake, and even a spin-off shows. Though, yeah, not too big on that one.
No, look at this one! You look like Bobby from...
Do I consider it to be the unmistaken classic that deserves Emmys and awards galore?
No.
But is it charming enough? I'd say so. Definitely a solid addition to the Nicktoons lineup.
Don't skeet on me!
Sometimes we have to remember, hey, kids are fucking stupid, and they like stupid shit. I'm a stupid kid, and I like stupid shit. Like the Ren and Stimpy show. And who could blame this show's fanbase? This is a stupid fun show. Starring a Chihuahua, I think, Ren, and his gay lover Stimpy. That is canon! It's really just about the two going on wacky misadventures and coming across wacky people. What makes the show stand out is the gross out and bizarre humor.
Oh, soup, eh?
Similar to the next show on this list, the bizarre wacky humor really helped this show stand out. On top of that is the wacky main characters and the bizarre situations they get into. Ren and Stimpy are such dumbasses, yet you kinda love them. This show definitely pushed the envelope in what could be shown in kids media, making the show notably controversial with parents. I mean, it's not like there's anything bad in there.
Do you have any rubber walrus protectors?
Call the police.
This show's fucking weird. Moving on. Similar to Ren and Stimpy, Rocco's Modern Life really pushed that TV envelope. Hell, a band episode has Rocco getting seduced by his married neighbor. Seriously, that's a hell of a way to get an episode banned. The show was very good at its subtle adult humor. In Ren and Stimpy, a big issue was the subtlety to the more mature humor. Here, it's much more well hidden and wouldn't give a bad impression to kids who are just watching. Outside of, the band episode. What really works about the show like Ren and Stimpy is its bizarre humor. Only I feel like I laugh more with Rocco, and that ties back to the humor being more subtle, like this Jim.
Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. Rocco! Mrs. Bighead?
The show is also very bizarre with its characters, except for the main character. I argue that's because Rocco is supposed to be the straight man character, a voice of reason in an unreasonable world, the sanity in an insane realm. Because of this, I guess he's not as memorable as some of the other main characters. He's not Doug Funny Bland, but he's nothing especially great either. I guess Carlos Alice Rocky... Ooh, that's a tough name. I guess this guy's performance really brings it home. Because a very good... That's another thing I really like about this show. It's voice acting. It really drives some of the hard-hitting jokes even further.
He's joking! He's joking! Is there a doctor in the house?
If I had one criticism, it would be how weirdly normal Rocco can be, but this is probably one of Nick's most solid shows from the 90s.
That was a hoot!
Okay, so truth be told, I didn't actually watch this one. I just wanted to say this one looks like a candy cane, and the other looks like my hairy... To possibly one of my favorite Nicktoons, we have Hey Arnold. In a time where Nicktoons were associated with being goofy and over the top, Hey Arnold seemed to be a lot more chill and relaxed. I argue the show taught the best lessons and gave the best insight to the lives we normally don't pay attention to. Arnold is not a very complex character, but the characters he meets and interacts with are very complex. One of my favorite episodes is the episode where Arnold meets this old man who only interacts with pigeons. Why? Because he believes pigeons are better than people. Yes, a kid's show pretty much has a character who hates humans because of their negativity. If you tried putting that shit in Rugrats, it'd be like mixing s'mores with Oreo. God damn! Hey Arnold is a very mature show, despite the shows before being much more bizarre and weird. It doesn't feel like it needs to make you laugh. That is one thing I'll level with. This isn't a very funny show. But the thing is, the focus isn't on the humor. If a joke works, it's mostly fine, but the real focus is on the more complex lives the people around Arnold live every day. But what separates Arnold from, say, Rocco or Doug is that he's not just the normal one in a bizarre world surrounding him. He is still likable and gives this innocent vibe off while still being interesting. I get if it not being funny turns a few people away, but for me, it's nice to have a more mature show in a line of weirdness. Hey Arnold! Oh, speaking of fucked up. CatDog has to be one of the strangest concepts in Nicktoon history. A cat and a dog who don't just live together, they're stuck together. Yeah, they're one huge body. How does this anatomy?
He smells...
Okay, outside of suspension of disbelief, CatDog is a very charming show, even if it's not my favorite. The characters of Cat and Dog are very likable and give off kind of a mix of the more mature nature of Arnold mixed with the goofiness of Ren and Stimpy. Like Hey Arnold, the show isn't terribly funny, but it makes up for creative scenarios and occasionally a nice knee slapper. And hey, at least unlike Doug, I can see a younger me laughing at these jokes. I really don't have much to say. Some of these will definitely be shorter than others, but CatDog is a pretty fun and likable show, even if it lacks in humor at times. And hey, it's become quite iconic for the Nickelodeon brand. Alone in the world with a little cat dog.
This is me, Eliza Thornberry, part of your average family.
The Wild Thornberries is a very neat concept. A girl who can talk to animals, let me finish, whose parents run a nature show. With that concept, you might think the talking to animals bit gets old, while the nature show is the bigger highlight. And kinda. I do admit the talking to animals thing is a little oversaturated, especially since talking to animals isn't an especially fresh concept, but it's made up for a very charming main character. Big ass teeth. Get out of my... Eliza is a very charming character. It would have been easy to make her unlikable or too annoying, giving her big ass tits. But thankfully, she never comes off that way. Same could be said for the other characters. Actually, the show is very good at throwing you off with these designs and somehow making the characters work. Donnie comes close to being too annoying, but every time I see myself getting irritated, he does something pretty funny. The mom is slightly forgotten, like she's not terribly funny, but she's also not in it very long. The sister, Debbie, is the only character I genuinely just don't like. I don't know, she was shooting the shit with Satan in that godforsaken Rugrats movie, so I guess my history with the brat taints any chance. The dad is what everyone remembers from the show, and for good reason. He's funny, bizarre, and best of all, voiced by Tim Curry.
Dad, grab the branch!
That's the girl, Eliza!
And again, look at the design. It would have been so easy to make him too over the top, but he is funny, he's voiced funny, and always has something weird going on. It's a perfect touch-up from the overly bizarre nature of Ren and Stimpy while still giving Nigel a charming personality. Like I said, it's not too terribly fresh. The talking to animals, yeah, that dates back to early Disney if not more. So it's definitely not a terribly fresh idea, but it's fun enough and I recommend checking it out. Hey, remember when Disney did Goof Troop? Yeah, this is Nick's Goof Troop. Rocket Power is just, yeah, probably with Doug as one of the lesser Nicktoons from the 90s. This isn't to say Rocket Power is bad, but it is, well, let's just say this was the late 90s. So there's a lot of Tony Hawk and extreme shit, and yeah, this is lame. The main characters, don't ask me their names, I can't remember any other than Otto. His name's fucking Otto, of course I'm gonna remember Otto. Are all just cookie cutter, really bland representations of the late 90s rebel punk look. The style is nice, it has a really nice, and I can't think of another word for it, Hawaiian vibe to it. It's not even a terribly interesting show from a kid's standpoint. I guess the skating would be considered somewhat cute, but I don't know. The characters aren't at all like the characters they precede, and the show just focuses way too much on being... It's not bad, but considering the shows that came before it, I wish it was just ever so slightly less cute. Okay, so Nickelodeon was doing pretty good with their programming, but they needed a really big show. Oh, what? You think a big show is gonna just come out of the blue? Oh my god! At this point, who doesn't know SpongeBob SquarePants? Hell, even if you don't watch the show, you know the sponge. You know the characters. This show was not only influential for Nickelodeon, not only influential for cartoons, it was influential for television. Audiences fell in love with this sponge, and it slowly became the iconic show we know it as today. Even though it should have ended after the first movie. Yeah, people have commented how Nickelodeon won't let the show die, and yeah, it really needs to. At this point, if it were to end, I wouldn't even feel joy, more as relief. This was a creation that so many people fell in love with, but I do agree, it's been on too long. The show is funny. I mean, there's been funny Nicktoons in the past, but this show is funny.
Mr. Krabs, what do we do?
Here, use this!
Especially in its earlier seasons, the show had iconic humor, jokes that landed, and funny main characters. Though yes, I do think the later seasons aren't all that great, you still have to give credit where credit's due. This show became iconic and there's no hidden reason.
Timmy is an average kid that no one understands.
Speaking of shows that Nickelodeon didn't let die, we have Fairly OddParents, the first of, I believe, 4 Butch Hartman Nicktoons. Fairly OddParents is most likely his most well-known series. His best series? I mean, Bunsen is a beast. But Fairly OddParents is one everyone recognizes. Following an average kid who no one understands, Mom and Dad and Vicky always giving him company.
Like Bobby from...
Fairly OddParents is sadly a show that did die a lot due to Nickelodeon not letting it go. It ran for 16 years between 2001 and 2017. To put in retrospective, Hartman's next show, Danny Phantom, only ran for 3 years between 2004 and 2007. But to this show's credit, it had a winning formula. Following Timmy Turner, a boy who has fairly godparents, Cosmo and Wanda, the show always has Timmy learn a lesson for selfish wishes. Yeah, fucking right. What do you want, Timmy? Yeah, fuck it. I want money and bitches. The show ran for a decent amount of time, but I will admit I stopped watching around 2015, 2016. The show had just introduced that dumbass dog, and I was just getting too old for the show. The show is funny and has a good sense of humor, and I'd say the first half of the show is pretty solid.
Coming!
But the other half of the show does have a lot of the stupid shit that clearly was just the writers scraping for ideas. Well, at least we have the movie. Damn.
It lets you live when you are a kid with family OddParents.
Yeah, right.
Invader Zim is possibly Nickelodeon's most controversial show, simply because it was darker, edgier, and had a more sinister idea to it. Look out, kids! Here comes dark and edgy! Because Coraline didn't happen. I always get pissed when a show gets canceled for a stupid reason. Clone High, Gandhi. Invader Zim, too edgy. I still don't know why the fuck they canceled Firefly. Take my love, take my hand, take it to my peanut stand. Fuck, I forgot the lyrics, damn it. Invader Zim follows an alien who pretends to be a human, with what happens to be one of the most comedically bad disguises I've ever seen. His skin is still green. It's like if Superman put his glasses on. Oh, sorry, Clark Kent. I was just... God damn it! The charm of the show truly is the darker sense of humor. It makes the series stand out more from the, at the time, standard lighthearted shows. Many have called this one of the best Nicktoons, and I can agree with that, but the all-time best Nicktoon pushes it. It is good, but not only did the other shows run longer, and I would consider them to be better, that's it. God, this is getting bad. So while I do have my issues with it being called the all-time best Nicktoon, Invader Zim definitely deserves its spot as one of the best. Nickelodeon be like, hey, the movie was somewhat of a success TV show.
3, 2, 1.
Got a blast.
While I was never a huge Jimmy Neutron fan, the show seems to be considered quite a staple of its time. I guess I agree. The concept following a boy named Jimmy Neutron, who is a boy genius. Yes, of course, I'm really good at this. Well, not a terribly fresh idea, looking at shows like Smart Guy or Dexter's Laboratory. Jimmy Neutron levels with those shows by being a lot more balls to the wall insane.
Will once again smear the competition.
Jimmy Neutron really thrived in creative situations, even if the designs could be a little dated.
It's almost as pretty as your mouth.
3, 2, 1.
So, for a while, because Rugrats was such a hit, Nickelodeon kept trying to repeat its success with spin-offs and even a reboot that's butt-frickin' ugly. One of the more notable ones was All Grown Up. This is an admittedly pretty decent idea. Take the babies from the original show and age them up to an awkward phase in life. That's actually pretty solid, but this show isn't exactly funny. Or at least, it's not as funny as the original show, which even then I didn't find the original show all that funny. Scenarios are pretty much your standard awkward preteen scenarios. Designs fit pretty well. Except for Dill. I refuse to believe this brat became 21 Pilots. I don't know, clearly it's not the original, but for what it is, All Grown Up gave harmless entertainment that I'm sure Rugrats fans will find okay.
All grown up with you. 5 o'clock, get a call to go blading at the skate park down by the mall.
Well, everybody knows the porn from this show. It's a fucking robot, guys. Now let me go back to fantasizing about Roxanne Wolf. My Life as a Teenage Robot is a pretty okay show. With very few things that separate it from the pack, it is easy to lose this one in the wave of Nicktoons, but it's not bad. Jenny is a very likable protagonist, but she overshadows a lot of the supporting cast. The show's biggest focus is definitely on its humor, as it is pretty funny. Not the funniest, but it still gets a few good chuckles. The animation is also very unique to the show, which I guess really does separate it from similar shows at the time. While not my favorite Nicktoon, My Life as a Teenage Robot is a solid series that deserves its love. Too much love. I'm disgusted, dude.
Teenage Robot life.
He's a phantom.
Back to the Butch Hartman train, we have a second shorter series, Danny Phantom. This show kicked ass, and it's no wonder it gained a following despite running 14 years shorter than Fairly OddParents. The show's focus is more on action than humor, a complete contradiction from Hartman's previous and even later shows. The show is still funny, but that's not the focus. The focus is really on these really tense and fun action scenes. At the center of it is a very humorous lead with Danny. The show admittedly has a weak finale, and that's become very known about the show. Hell, apparently it's the whole last season. I don't know, I didn't see too many problems. Danny Phantom may not have ran as long as Hartman's other shows, but it clearly is, in my opinion, his most solid series.
Danny Phantom.
Okay, so similar to SpongeBob, it was looking like Nickelodeon needed another big hit to put them on the map. What do you think? Another hit show is just gonna appear? Are you kidding me? Another?
Water. Earth.
Who doesn't know Last Airbender? When people say cartoons aren't what they used to be, this show is usually brought up. And yeah, I can understand why. This show is something else. And the best way is this show became a phenomenon only comparable to SpongeBob or Rugrats. Many consider this the best Nicktoon, and yeah, I'm willing to go there. This show is just too good. The anime-inspired look, the characters, the environment, the story, the lore. Everything about it is amazing, and it's certainly a hell of a ride.
Aang can save the world.
The video game wasn't that fucking good. 2007 seemed to be a year where Nickelodeon saw their somewhat popular properties and said, let's ruin them. Back in the Power of Juju, despite its flaws, it's a very fun and original video game that I happen to grow up with. And the series, remember when they made a series about Donkey Kong Country? This is about as awkward.
Well, what'd she say? Something about driving the fence out of Chickamauga. Huh?
It's just, it has none of what made the games fun and original. Tak isn't especially memorable. Hell, the only thing I do remember from the show is Treylock. And honestly, that's one of the highlights of the games too, so yeah. Tak's show is proof that Nickelodeon intervened too much, as they also released the fourth game that didn't do as well as the others. Overall, yeah, Tak and the Power of Juju can Juju. On that beat, damn it!
I'm just heading to the fields, Duke. I'll be back. Clear!
The movie fucking sucks. Why they thought Barnyard the series would work is beyond me. Because it actually kind of does. This isn't their best show by a long shot, but surprisingly, this show can be pretty funny. The humor is especially better here than the original film.
You will find a safe haven here in our termite utopia.
One day I'm going to probably talk about the Nickelodeon movies, but you'll see my thoughts on the movie then. For now, Back at the Barnyard isn't Nickelodeon's finest, but it does the trick alright. Madagascar was a pretty big deal for a while. When the first film came out, it definitely did the numbers in DVD sales, and became a hidden gem for DreamWorks. And around the release of the second movie was a series based on one of the two characters everyone agrees would have worked on their own spin-off, The Penguins of Madagascar. The other is King Julian, but I guess the world isn't perfect. Wait, he got a spin-off too, life is great! This show, like Barnyard, isn't especially Nickelodeon's greatest, but it works with its humor while also staying true to the original films. Everyone is very likable and just as they were in the films. The highlight being the lemurs, King Julian, Moore, and Mauricio. It's definitely rough, but I think it holds up fine. P.S. Go look at All Hail King Julian, it's actually pretty solid.
Cute and cuddly, boys!
Okay, so here's the thing, fuck this show. Fanboy and Chum Chum is a show that I genuinely understand people my age looking back on and hating. This show is so annoying. There was a moment in time where Nickelodeon tried to get shows that were more like their weird 90s Nicktoons with shows like Rocco's Modern Life and Ren and Stimpy, and somehow this is more annoying than the entirety of that era. The leads are both annoying as balls, the animation certainly doesn't do the show any favors, the character design is atrocious, and worst of all, it focuses on fart humor.
I like to make poopy in my diaper.
They took the show over Adventure Time, folks. Fanboy and Chum Chum is one of Nickelodeon's worst by a fucking long shot, but it does have some redeeming qualities. The biggest one is this character voiced by Jeff Bennett. Maybe it's coincidence, but the show gave some of its funniest writing to Jeff Bennett's character, and I'm pretty sure it's just because he's Jeff Bennett. There's also a comic book nerd voiced by Josh Duhamel. I like the idea that he said yes to this.
Oh, that's nice. Sheen, do not push this button.
Dogs like cheese, cows like monkeys, Planet Sheen is oh so funky.
Okay, I get the last part, but the first two...
Nickelodeon be like, yeah, this dude's fucking annoying. Give him a spinoff. Planet Sheen might be the single worst spinoff in all of these Nicktoons. At least All Grown Up was somewhat of a solid concept. Everything about Sheen, Fortnite, Battle Pass, Estevez spinoff blows. I'm not trying to say the animation in the original Jimmy Neutron was anything fantastic, but this animation in particular is just ugly. And this was 2010. Sheen was annoying in the original, but I think the reason why people tolerated him was that he wasn't the focus. This show is called Planet Sheen, y'all. He gets so overbearing, it makes for such an annoying lead. Not that the other characters are saints, but I often find myself enjoying them just because their voices aren't so fun. You can grate cheese on it! Planet Sheen is a butt-ugly, annoying spin-off that didn't need to happen. And to me, it's one of Nickelodeon's worst.
Planet Sheen!
Speaking of worst, I always find it so interesting how many people didn't like Tough Puppy. This is far from Butch Hartman's best cartoon, but as for what it is, it's fine. The story of a plain old mutt named Dudley Puppy, yeah, my name's Xander Parakeet, joining a secret agency called Tough. My all-time favorite thing about the show is Jerry Trainer as Dudley. If you don't know the name, think of him starting a fire next to Miranda Cosgrove with his bare hands.
You are grounded till college.
Till college! Yeah, Jerry Trainer is mostly known for his role as Spencer in the Nickcom iCarly. I don't know, he gets some seriously good laughs here. Again, it's just because Jerry Trainer is voicing him, but he's actually a pretty humorous lead. Kitty Catwell is also a very humorous character voiced by Gray Griffin. You thought I was going to say that I want to fuck Kitty Catwell, didn't you? You're right. Oh my...
They beam a hypnotic ray that controls the minds of rats.
This is another one of those shows that I can't say all the jokes work, but about 75% of them really do land. Sure, the concept of an original Joe becoming a secret agent or spy is no new concept, but it is relatively fresh for cartoons, at least at the time. So yeah, while I wouldn't call it a perfect Nicktoon, Tough Puppy is a pretty alright show in my opinion.
Tough puppy, he's a tough puppy. Hear the legends of the Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu Panda was an unexpected hit when it came out in 2008, and around the time the sequel was being made, a Nickelodeon show was also made about it. While this isn't to the quality of the movie, I do think it's still fine. The animation is nice for the time, and the characters still feel like their original movie counterparts. I really do like that this show feels like Kung Fu Panda, mixing the humor the films had while still having some kick-ass action. While it's definitely not the movie, Legends of Awesomeness is still a pretty fine experience that will satisfy fans of the movie.
Legends of Awesomeness. Sweet.
Earth.
If The Last Airbender is one of the best Nicktoons, I'd say Legend of Korra is almost there. It's not bad, it's not even mediocre, hell, it's pretty much on par with some of the stuff from The Last Airbender. I'd say it takes about 85% of the amazing stuff from The Last Airbender, while also taking another 15% from the stuff that was just okay. On the other side of things, I'd say The Last Airbender is about 95% amazing, while only 5% of it I would just call okay. And usually those were lesser episodes. Korra is not a bad show, but I certainly wish it was more on par with The Last Airbender, which I still consider one of the best of Nickelodeon. Again, it's just the standard of The Last Airbender set. As its own show, I'd still say Korra is a pretty decent addition. But it's kind of a different story when it comes to the universe.
The cycle of the Avatar began anew.
This show is another one of those shows that clearly had a good concept, but it was botched by pretty lazy writing. This is far from Fanboy and Chum or Planet Sheen bad writing, but it's not good either. It's a case of writing that feels like filler. Like every episode is a filler episode. What I mean by that is, unlike a show like Rocco or any other goofy concept show, it doesn't feel like the characters are being given any interesting or funny scenarios. Despite being somewhat interesting and funny characters, Robot and Monster are very interesting characters, but they're not given anything funny or interesting. You have Harlan Williams as one of your main characters. Give him funny shit to say! This is far from the worst ever Nicktoon, but given its classic Saturday morning setup, I do wish it was a bit better.
Robot Monster right now.
Here's an interesting thing. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a property you'd probably think would immediately translate to a decent show or movie every single time. Which is why I always find it amazing how detailed and fun the 2012 series is. This is a solid series, giving TMNT fans exactly what they want. The animation really pays homage to both anime and the classic series animation, while also being its own thing. The show is so good at being humorous, it also gives a good dose of action and even drama. It's actually interesting how detailed the arcs of this show get. This is a show that clearly had a lot of effort put in, and that's why I'm so excited for Mutant Mayhem, a movie that clearly takes a lot of inspiration from TMNT media like this. Hard to say if this will be the best TMNT adaptation. It's not that hard to say, but I do think this 2012 series gives a decent dose of action, comedy, and even hard-hitting drama. Hard-hitting for kids. This ain't fucking Shakespeare! Okay, so DreamWorks and Nickelodeon in the past have had a pretty good track record. Hey, there it is, dog shit. Give Penguins of Madagascar and Legends of Awesomeness some credit, at least they're based on somewhat like DreamWorks movies. I can't think of anyone who looked at Monsters vs. Aliens and said, you know what, fuck Kung Fu Panda, I want to hear a blob played by Seth Rogen. Oh wait, they couldn't even get Seth Rogen for the series because it had the budget of a shoestring. I'm not even kidding, at least Penguins and Awesomeness had somewhat decent animation for TV. This animation seems pretty lazy, even for 2013. It looks underdeveloped and kind of blocky. In comparison to the movie, say what you will about the writing and story, the animation was still pretty decent for 2009. Speaking of writing, this is pretty weak. At least the movie had occasionally funny bits. Here, I guess kids would find it funny, but there's barely anything for adults. I don't know, it's clear why this show only ran for 1 year as opposed to the longer running DreamWorks shows. It's not terrible, it just happens to represent the movie well. There was also a point in time where Nickelodeon was trying to recreate the success shows like Ren and Stimpy and Rocco had, where just being balls to the wall insane equaled a quality product. And how do they attempt to bring that success back?
Looking for a pet one day. Santa found a talking snake.
No.
Buckle up, duckies, cause we got a rocket band.
So hear me out. Peace.
While I didn't watch the show when it came out, I did have somewhat of an idea of what it was. And from hearing other cartoon critics talk about it, I assumed it was a solid show. And after checking it out, I'm glad to say that most of what people like Fan Strider and all of them have stated is mostly true. I do think the show is definitely more focused for kids, but unlike a show like Fanboy and Chum, just being for kids actually aids for the show. It has a very nice vibe to it. It's not over the top, it's not balls to the wall insane, yet it still feels like it's doing the most for its audience. It's like if the nice simple vibes of Hey Arnold were more upgraded to a modern day environment. It's certainly a nicer show than
Poopy!
Okay, so I was pretty mean to this show in my Cartoon Network video, and honestly, I was really just playing it up. It's just kind of annoying and has become kind of what SpongeBob's become for Nickelodeon. I'm not trying to say Nickelodeon is milking Loud House dry, but they have a fucking movie, of course they are. The story about a boy named Lincoln who has 10 sisters. What does the mom look like? How? Loud House probably wouldn't be what a sane person calls the most solid Nicktoon, but I was harsh to it, and honestly, I don't watch enough, so I guess I'm just being an asshole. But remember how I said I didn't consider Tough Puppy Butch Hartman's worst cartoon? This is why. Bunsen is a Beast is by far and beyond the worst of Hartman's Nick lineup. It is so much different than the other Hartman properties. It doesn't feel like it's trying with its writing, its concept feels rushed, and everything about it feels rushed. But we're getting to the end of these Nicktoons I've actually watched, so there's that too. Now we're down to the last Nicktoon I paid attention to, Welcome to the Wayne. Ending off on what I would call a pretty solid note. By no means a masterpiece, but do you know when people say Gravity Falls changed television? This is what they mostly talk about. An overarching story, mysteries galore. This is clearly taking a lot from Gravity Falls. But it still feels like its own thing. I don't know, Nickelodeon did this show dirty, so I have barely anything to go off of. With that said, solid end to my Nicktoons lineup. It kind of sucks how I haven't been able to keep up with Nickelodeon since 2017. I mean, I'm sure nothing extraordinary has come out since then, but I do feel bad because I grew up with Nickelodeon the most. And I look back on these shows and remembering the fun times, well, that's all I could truly ask for.